It's hard to reach out. Sometimes the vacuums between what one experiences from a higher level dimension shakes up the reality game of who we are, that we tend to reach out. I use the expression religious window shoppers, or those who are reaching out rather than reaching into their heart. Through my gifts, with Desiree's help, we've been able to create really a living library of light, a teaching with many music albums, many film documentaries, many voices speaking of how we work with the indigenous elders, how we work with biblical scholars, we work with astronauts. So we have a tremendous library of futurism that people can use. So we don't all come into this quandary for a perpetual spin. No, we're in a time where even world pressures of inconsistencies of politics, geopolitics, the misuse of economics, macro and microeconomics, allow us to feel within our inner gut that something's wrong. And utilizing that sense of frustration can be a positive change, a starting point, because it's the critical mass, it's the critical doubt that precedes the finding the right answer, the right collective ingredient.
Hi, my name is Senka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is removing the word impossible from your minds. I'm very excited. These are two of my biggest heroes in the entire world, JJ and Desiree Hurtak, and they do travel the world. They're scholars, they're authors, they're artists, they're futurists, and they have been involved with some of the most important scientific and ancient history research projects that the world has ever known. They take the word futurism to a new level because I believe through their book of knowledge that they have downloaded and gifted to the world, they have influenced some of the top minds in consciousness and an entire generation and generation and generation of people that will be lifetimes upon lifetimes calling over what they have left behind, putting the pieces together to something way more profound and beyond us than we ever realized. Now, they have created the Academy of Future Science. It operates in over 15 countries. Their book has been translated in more than 10 languages. They are truly world heroes. And I'm excited for you to hear their interview today.
I'm Dr. J.J. Hurtak.
And I'm Dr. Desiree Hurtak.
We are social scientists, futurists, and specialists in language. I call it the language of light, and that has been my experience after my exceptional experience in 1973. When as a young professor, I began to use energy mantras, and this created a morphogenic field that opened for me. A being of light briefly appeared before my eyes, and that changed really my plan of life. I began to realize that there was a whole language of light above and beyond the phonemes and morphemes of human language. And that led to the writing of this book, The Keys of Enoch, which many know who are the avant-garde of spiritual teaching. This book represents really the psychology, the philosophy, the sociology of how we are all endowed with a divine spark to bring about a new humanity, a humanity that works not only in the third dimension, but the fifth dimension. A unity between heaven and earth. We would say in scientific language, the ability to reach out to cosmic civilization and realize we're one family, one joy, one heartbeat of the discovery of the higher self.
I was a student at the time, and so amazingly, I understood a lot of what he was talking about because I grew up in the area of Miami, the Bermuda Triangle, and I knew about these other realities. I'd already experienced some of them. And so we worked together, and it was a perfect match to being able to bring together information. I'm an artist as well, a graphic artist, and he was a writer for the book, and we were able together to bring this to the world. This has been our mission. And then after that, there's much more to be said and done and to introduce because it talks about a cosmology we believe we're moving into today. Everyone has to understand the need for a greater cosmology than living in a small little planet. And this is our mission. This is our purpose. When we begin to understand that we are not only not alone in the universe, we're not even alone in the consciousness reality of what we think and what we feel. And so this is so important to get people to be aware, to use their higher energies, to not be defeated, to know in a quantum field world, there is every possibility we can choose, and we can do it together. We can bring peace, we can bring love, we can bring harmony, and we can bring joy.
And as we sit before this magnificent picture from a colleague of ours showing this fantastic mandala we call a cosmogram that shows many dimensions, many illustrations of how we think through sacred geometry, we recognize that the whole purpose of transformation is the ability to open that part of the brain to see and work conceptually on many levels. That is called the right hemisphere, the feminine side that has been traditionally suppressed by traditions of science and religion. We have found in our work together worldwide that people who open the right side of the brain begin to think multidimensionally through music, through sound, and sacred geometry, as we see here all the time, discover the secret of the language of light, that there is a vibratory process now being recognized that comes down even to the music of the DNA. In short, we are transducers according to the Keys of Enoch. This book, with a dove over our head, with 7 radiations of light for the 7 chakras or energy points of our body, to bring a greater light, a greater purpose, a greater mission to every soul, every person on this planet. So music, sacred art or cosmology, using sacred pictures, as well as new science, looking at the frontiers of where we're going as a human race, is the secret really of bringing together what the ancient prophets call the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. We're at that critical point. All of us have seen history as a replay of death and destruction, or a new type of futurism that sees a positive future where we graduate, where we become cosmic citizens, full of the endowments promised by the great mystics and prophets and poets. We, in essence, want all of you in this conversation to realize what has been the spark that has brought us around the world. And that spark is using the language of light in positive thought, in positive synergy, in positive symphonic realization.
So we all have an important purpose, especially right now. The planet is going through so many changes, and we're all excited about it. We're not depressed about these changes. We're here for that reason. We need to move forward with an understanding of how we are cosmic beings. We need to understand that we are multidimensional beings, and that energy really helps us to allow this planet to change, to become more of the light, of the love, and of the understanding of higher truth. Let us do this together and have the energy to move forward collectively. We're not alone. None of us can do our mission alone. It's all with each other's help. But we have to go with the flow. I think that's very important in understanding our mission. We have to listen to that still small voice within. And when we do, we move into the right scenarios. We're at the right place at the right time. We're part of the higher synchronicities of the whole cosmos.
Well, I speak for thousands of young teachers who are facing a young audience. In my case, I was teaching Eastern philosophy that speaks of avatars and maha-avatars, as we say in the Sanskrit Greek minds of the universe. Also courses dealing with the Near Eastern traditions, we call the biblical and the Egyptian of the higher masters of light. And I began to think of how I could really answer the questions of my students. Who are these beings of light? Are they for real? Do they communicate? And this led me as a musician, as a linguist, really to come into the realization of putting together East and West, the Sanskrit with the Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Greek with the Coptic. And in the process of putting together what we will call a musical linguistics, a language of sound vibration, and using that intensely for several years, I had this experience of suddenly awakening with this morphogenic door of vibration opening. I know it sounds nice, and for many it's a whole lifetime of experience, but I believe we're at a time right now where the world conditions give us the appropriate time to raise our chakras, like musicians on the keyboard go to a higher octave of vibration. And I believe that is the key to allow the mind to go through stress and change, critical change that precedes the revelatory insights. And so to answer really the perspective of how this happened, it really was under the need to see the greater blueprint, the need to find out if there was a God, a divine source behind all of this great intellectual wisdom. That was not simply words, but vibrations of biological music, all brought together into a new matrix. And so this allowed me to have the ability to find the vibratory language, we call it in metaphysics, the language of light. This allowed me to see many areas of science that were not known at that time.
So on a practical level, actually, when Dr. Hurtak came back from his experience and started telling his students, of which I was one, actually many people said, oh, this is amazing teaching. So there was actually more and more people coming together to listen to him. Of course, a few people didn't get the images that he had received from his direct experience about things on the planet, past, present, future, and about the heavenly realms, the various dimensional realities that we're in the midst of. But in reality, it's been, I would say, very positive for us to move forward with this cosmology, because it was a man, he was a man ahead of his time, but now it's the time, if I can put it that way. People are starting to understand that this is at the right place and the right time to understand who we are in the greater cosmos. I mean, many people will say 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, thought humanity was only on this planet for 6,000 years. Now we're starting to understand it's 12,000 years. It's even greater when you look at places like Göbekli Tepe. So these are all different scenarios that he prepared humanity for, as far as I'm concerned. That's part of our mission, to be able to prepare humanity and say, yes, it's all okay. There's nothing wrong with understanding our true history. There's nothing wrong with understanding our true origin, that we're part of a cosmic reality. And this is really the modern way of moving forward. So we're here really to help humanity to get that bigger picture and to realize it's not something we have to fear. It's something we have to understand and really comprehend, that makes us grow in our image of ourselves. It's our image of ourselves that has been dumbed down. And now we're growing into this greater reality of who we truly are. That yes, we've been on this planet for thousands of years. Yes, we are part of a higher identity. Maybe we didn't even evolve exclusively on this planet. Maybe we're part of the cosmos. Is that fearful for some people? Maybe yes, but really it's the reality that science is teaching us. And this, our mission is to really say, it's okay. This is who we are. Congratulate each other in our cosmic reality.
So when we speak of the cosmic picture or the big picture, we're speaking of what is illustrated in the Keys of Enoch, as we see in the art form of Marika Postuma, the great Dutch artist I commissioned. We see a micro-universe within the cells of our body, but we see also a macro-universe of the divine eternal self, personified by the divine feminine. Both the inner and the outer must converge. And that's the secret. We are living membranes between an inner universe and outer universe. Fantastic proportion. This requires us, however, to realize who we really are. We are temples of divine vibration. We are members of a temple of understanding, of all the temples, all of the traditions in balance, without which, again, we have chaos, confusion, conflict. And so this is important to realize that this book is not of words, linear sentences, but of mental pictures, cosmograms that allow us, if we study the pictures with the right side of the brain, the feminine, to open up to a whole new language of putting the higher language together on 7 levels, from the genetic DNA to the divine name, Yod He Vod He, to bring together hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, and carbon in the process of formulating the flow plan of our inner body, the opening of the heart valves, realizing through what we call heart mathematics that we are a living vibratory process connecting every living human on this planet. And ultimately, our graduation comes when we take the throat chakra and make it a trumpet. So the vibrations come up to the mind, not just to one side of being super scientists saying, oh, go away, the feminine, or super religionists, oh, ignore the indigenous. No, the super mind opens to all sides, to everyone that wants to participate in this inner language. The synthesis, yes, but more than a synthesis, a symphony will become, as we see in the book of John the Divine, Revelation of John the Divine, chapter 14, we hear the heavenly choir. We would call them today the cosmic engineers, the cosmic teachers, those of the ultra-terrestrial realms who are waiting for us to wake up, to smell the coffee, and realize we are no longer sleepwalkers, but we are active vibratory participants in a language of conversation that ultimately connects us with the next level of creation.
But we're sitting here, two people together, to show everyone the harmony that we need to achieve, male and female. And of course, you can do that within yourself, and you should. That should be part of your mission, to balance the two energies within you. So we get rid of the duality and we start connecting with the oneness. This is so important for our mission of understanding how each of us also are unique, divine sparks. And each of those sparks are separate. They're always unique. They're always different. But ultimately, it's putting them all together and realizing these are the emanations of higher thought that we are part of. And we are really just part of those sparks. I mean, we need to get away from the separation of the I versus the you. We need to see the we, the collectiveness. And that is the higher mission, helping others to come together. I find when you start doing that, when you start bringing in that desire to help humanity, your whole life changes. This is the issue of our mission. How can we help one another on this planet? You know, and we talk about higher realms. We talk about sometimes even angels, and they have a collective purpose, a collective mind. They don't see this person being that person and they're all separate. They actually work together. That is, I believe, the purpose of our mission here on Schoolhouse of the Soul, is to find that unity, that balance. As we're each unique, we are also in oneness.
So we are the angels. We are the messengers. That is the true meaning of the Greek word angel, angelus. We are here to recognize the larger assignment. And this, again, goes back to one of the maps in the Keys of Enoch that show that our planet is divided into 12 vibratory areas of archaeological wonder. This was a big assignment 50 years ago. But I had a deeper insight that there was a higher guidance that comes with the soul, that comes with the moment of incarnation. And that template is the 12 vibratory channels the acupuncture scientists call the meridians. And if we put the energy frequencies together properly, vertically and horizontally, our body then becomes a temple of spirit that opens, that speaks. And we were led by spirit to areas of archaeology in Egypt, where we found the tomb of Osiris, through music and through radar working together. We were led to places in Japan, where we were invited as archaeologists, anthropologists, and linguists to go under the ocean to find at Yonaguni. And that's in our documentary called The Temple of Mu.
And that's the evidence of ancient civilizations.
And we were guided by earlier experience and use of remote viewing, the ability to see beyond our physical 3 dimensions, other dimensional realities, to look in the context of other scientists I was working with at our sister planet Mars, and to discover the actual reality of pyramidal formations in the Elysium quadrangle of Mars. To put all of this together means this is the living blueprint, that we are being prepared to see a new future and open to the wonders of a true past. Our ancestors knew we were not alone. Our children are befuddled, perhaps given situations of seeing hopelessness, the painful realities of the 21st century. We said to this balderdash, look beyond the scene, discover the true past, that our ancestors were in touch with the star nations, as we were told by the indigenous elders. But we have now achieved a moment through internet to have a university without walls, to have a download of information that allows us to do in a few years normally would take generations. So our work of the Academy is to, shall we say, put on your garment of vibration, activate the right side of the feminine side of your psyche, and realize that we are beginning to see a whole new avalanche of information that's going to change.
So it's important to realize when you ask about struggles, our greatest struggle is because things have to change. The psychology of energy technology has to change. And so when you introduce 0-point energy, as mentioned in the Keys of Enoch, people don't want to accept it. But these things are realities. When you talk about archaeology, that the Great Pyramid may be older than 3,000 years, the establishment doesn't want to accept it. So there's always those struggles. But then there's the other people that are coming up because you help to introduce the concept. You help to bring that energy into the consciousness field, and people are starting to accept it, receive it, and then move forward with it. So we found in 64 areas of science, which Dr. Hurtak was told was really going to shift, that those fields are all shifting. And this is our mission, to really bring that consciousness into the new realities, the true realities, that we are not alone. But in addition to that, what's important is that might be my mission, but your mission is also part of that, to bring in wherever you are and whatever you're doing, the higher truth, the greater understanding, the fuller picture. That picture is very important. We see usually in a box. Let's open that box. Let's go into the portal of ascension and see the reality. That's really what we're doing here. Of each one of us is finding our mission, awakening our inner self to the true truth, and bringing that forward to planet Earth. So it's important to realize, if you haven't yet found your mission in life, it's not just you who discovers it. There's a whole download, I can say, of information that can be given to you by your higher self, by the one who does know, and that guides and directs you. So how do you start with this? Well, in a certain sense, you have to reach out. You have to say, it's probably not enough for me to make that intellectual decision of what I'm supposed to do. I can't put the pieces together myself. I need a little bit of higher guidance. And once you do that, and the second part to that is to say, the guidance and your mission is not just about you. It's about how you can help. We're here all on planet Earth to literally help humanity, to help each other, to help animals, to help plants, whatever it is. So you have to also say, I'm here to help. How best can I help? Those words can often, and I've seen it for many, many of our friends, change your life completely. Then you have to be willing to take that step. You can't say, oh, I have to hold back for a little bit because I still have this I have to do or that I have to do. You have to be willing to step forward. And when you hear that still small voice within you saying, move in this direction, you have to be willing to go. You can test that energy. You can go maybe a half a step and say, is this feeling right? Or is this feeling not right? Am I getting that real guidance or not? So I always say, test the energy, test your information, but realize that the intellectual mind is not enough to have you given the direction of your higher mission. It has to come from your higher self, from the divine self, from the Christ consciousness. So reach out, ask for that guidance, be willing to move forward, and it'll come.
So the question we're often asked is, what do we do? How do we work with a practice when we don't want the formalities of a new ism, a new restrictions code, as it were? And this is really the importance of recognizing the vastness of the consciousness out of which both mind and matter come, not the other way around. The consciousness realm requires us to create a sacred space within space. So no matter where we are, whether we're in New York, a small apartment hearing the taxi cab noises or the pollution of airplanes or whatever, we have to create that sacred space and move into that sacred space. And thus we can lay on our side or on our back or stand before a sacred picture, but we have to be able to create that space that's sacred and move into it. And that sacred space is the realization that we are in the fullness of the divine moment.
to create that sacred space, we actually have many musical CDs and songs, which are important because in a certain sense, your mind is usually everywhere, especially on the planet, sometimes even too hectic to go into that deeper reality. So music and song is part of that. It puts you into that relaxed state that allows you to receive more information. And also, I believe, because we use some of the sacred expressions and names and words, it's almost like a cosmic telephone line. So you're saying something like Michael, the archangel, and that energy is coming to you. And it's interesting to note that you don't have to have Michael literally come to you. What he does is he projects an emanation of himself. So he really can come to you, but it's not like he's leaving where he is. He has multidimensional realities to manifest into and to literally even appear in some cases. But the sounds, the words, the music is all part of putting your mind into that sacred space.
A second threshold is to recognize, as shown in a book we wrote with the famous Elizabeth Rauscher called Mind Dynamics in Space and Time, that we are living in a time of the real X-Files, that we can overcome the fear and uncertainty by knowing that the top scientists are showing the consciousness expansion is a reality, that we can overcome the fears, the doubts, the skepticism of our training to realize it's time to step out and to shine and be the brilliant light on the top of a hill or within the normal sociological realities that we have to walk through morning to night. Be that light constantly. And so be, as it were, the light all the time. Keep the light going all the time because you are connected with the higher source, as shown in Mind Dynamics. What does that mean? That we are connected with more dimensions than we think.
And I love to tell people, because some people are skeptical about the idea of remote viewing or being able to tap into other realities. So I always tell people on a practical level, when your phone's ringing, before you even look to see who it is, think of who it is. You train your mind, and once you do that enough, you realize you are a part of a greater cosmos. You'll never lose your keys again as well.
And then part 3 is all our books are illustrated with cosmographs that allow our mind to be resensitized, to see more of the color spectrum, to hear more of the musical spectrum, and use the paraphysical powers of mind over matter. So it's that ability to reach out and to use the new self. We call the over self awakening, the higher mind, where we open not simply the 7th chakra, we go from the 8th to the 14th chakra of the over self, which means we are prepared for all possibilities. We are moving into a whole new realm. Yes, the 5th dimension, even beyond that, the ability to heal at a distance, to hear and to understand through intuition and gifts that we've repressed. These have to come and be nourished into the foreground of life.
And the practical side of that, the cosmograms actually show you the pictures. It's like the ancient Tonkas of Tibet. You see all the different beings in the heavenly realms. So you start to understand that you're not alone, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to put my consciousness into the 5th dimension or even the 8th dimension, and there I am. Well, what else is around you? Actually, lots of beings exist. Lots of consciousness thoughts exist. And so we need to awaken to the fact that it's not just us. It's myriads of us's coming together and being part of it. And there's myriads also that are there to help you exclusively, but help you also help others. So that's the world, the cosmos that we're living in. We have to get outside the box and see the true reality.
And finally, the power of prayer and meditation that can be sublimated, that can be used now with these other laboratory tools, sacred color or dreaming and technicolor, sacred geometry, ability to see many geometric forms combined, unique ways of energy production, sacred music to activate the mind in all situations for all seasons, and finally, sacred language, which connects us with cosmic intelligence, used together that opens our mind and our process to the library of information. The ancients called this the Sarius Phos, the Greek words for a treasury of light. We begin to be prepared not to be in a humble state, but into an active state, not to be afraid of the angelic messengers the great master teaches when they appear to us, to see eye to eye, heart to heart, lip to lip, that we speak the same language of eternity. The paraphysical language, the musical language, the language of the heart, ultimately brings us into the finality of leaving behind the third dimension and walking forth into the fifth as cosmic citizens and saying, yes, we've made it, but we brought others with us, our children, our grandchildren, and thus we begin to understand why there are other planets that await for us to be the Adams and Eves, the new beings, with the Christed spirit, the indwelling spirit of the great master teachers that recognize that we are, in essence, the eternal spirit, the divine in human form.
We have a bonus track for this interview. As you've learned in this profound interview, JJ and Desiree are really trying to communicate to something to us that we cannot find in a regular book or a movie, right? These are things that happen, that get activated when certain sounds are made, when certain sacred words are spoken. And I'm excited to share with you an addendum to this interview, where you're going to get to hear them go into and induce some of these profound states. And we encourage you to listen and try and speak out loud some of these profound things that allow you to get out of your rational mind and into your overself.
Well, we've been talking about words or phrases that go in one ear out the other, or reflections on what the eye sees on the page of black and white notation. But our work is with conceptual language that is a flow of musical words that brings together the greater dimensions. What we discovered in our work with Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher at Stanford Research Institute is the eighth dimension, the mirror that reflects the first four dimensions. The higher self and the human self are what the ancients call as above, so below. That mastery of balance with the active mind must be maintained by each of us if we are to work miracles now, rather than dissipate our energies on people who don't want to listen, don't want to open their heart, don't want to feel the sensitivity of the sound. And so if you permit me, as a person of musical training, like a cantor, I'm going to intone one of the sacred expressions.
Maybe a Greek expression, Dr. Hurtak?
Well, I'll do both the Greek and the Hebrew.
Okay.
Why? Because our traditions have shown us in the Near East, which is the basis of Western civilization, there was this higher integration of the spiritual side of the Hebrew Aramaic and then the mathematical side of the Greek. And so the languages, biblical languages, are our point of departure, or saying to us, there's a Bible within a Bible of music, mathematics, and sacred geometry. Not just a Bible that you read, stories of a negative God or negative scenario. No, you begin to feel the wisdom of a much higher creator, divine lover, who uses the Bible as a love letter to open up the sounds and the sensory apparatus that we have to grow up. Permit me now, I'm going to intone the sacred expression, the Lord is here. 7 times for the 7 chakras. Feel the golden light pouring around your body. If possible, visualize a white dove over your head, representing the gospel of peace, the language of light, the ability to reach out and see humanity in balance and harmony. Adonai Shema, Adonai Shema. Adonai Shema, Adonai Shema, Adonai Shema, Adonai Shema, Adonai Shema, to the ends of the earth. May the quickening, the vibration of a higher music open up all of the chakras, all of the sensory points of our body, so that the golden light can flow, so that the vision of the future may be one of harmony and peace, so we may understand that we are also musical instruments from every part of our anatomy, especially our spinal system, which in essence is a musical staff in the image of Moses, Elijah. we meet the Christ, the cosmic Christ, not of theology, but of actual vibratory experience in the realm of spirit. With that in mind, I move to the Greek New Testament with the Greek mantra soma Christou, which means the body, the soma Christou of the Christ. This represents the Christ of eternity, but also the Christ within us, the self-realized nature that we are here to serve. We are liberated from one side of the brain to the exclusion of the other, or one side of the human culture to be ecumenical, to be in unity, and to take our mind off the cross of space and time. Behold, listen. Soma Christou, 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 Soma Christou. With that vibration on the tip of our tongue, we realize. With that vibration on the tip of our tongue, we realize that we are vibratory biotransducers, or musical forms of life, working in a higher octave. The same human body, the same planet of Mother Earth, the same environment, but it changes now because we introduce the higher music of mind over matter. The music the Greeks call the music of the spheres that move other geometries around within our body so that we become custodians of a much larger anthropology and geology and psychology. In essence, the ability to seek, to serve, to sense, and to transform is the fulfillment of self-realization, the finding of the divine within the human. The two natures converge, the human and the divine. The mystery of the Christ now is understood is the Christ for all nations, not for one religion or tradition. They cannot see the vastness of humans awakening to the call of spirit.
And so we're all musical chords, but we need to create the song together to make the whole symphony of planet Earth resound. And I think that is our mission, to get everyone speaking, singing, and working in harmony together. Orchestration is key for our transformation. We're really multidimensional beings, and that means not only what you see here is who we are, but we have a consciousness reality that goes into the greater realms, the consciousness field, we would say the universal mind. And it's not necessarily us limited to the body. There's also what we personally call, and have written a book about, called the overself body. Is that overself body is able to reach into that reality. But then if it has the wisdom, it has the knowledge, it has to also reach down to us. And we have to accept that there's information that we can receive here that can help us, that can help the planet by coming from higher realities. That's the key, I think, to the new reality, to the new planet, to the next day of graduation, where we go beyond what is known in just this square or round planetary sphere, and we become aware of what needs to be done. And you know, that cosmos knows more than we ourselves. That cosmos knows more than the intellectual mind. That cosmos knows more than even the fight or flight situation. So we need to listen to that. We need to receive it. We need to acknowledge it. And we will be in the right place at the right time every moment of our lives. That's knowing what some would call divine will. I call it, that's following our mission in life.
Some call it the happening experience that somehow puts you in an orchestrated relationship with new beings. Like I met with Morton Sabatnik, father of the Symphonic Symphony, back in the 70s, after my experience with the light And he and I, along with a very famous Korean scientist who developed the first video synthesizer, Nam June-paik, were able to orchestrate a whole school to use music as a biofeedback way of being, to change our personality, to see really the energies of how young students who are attracted to music can be more creative and more dynamic in cross-cultural relationships that took us around the world. As you will see in one of the pictures I brought with me, there is light that appears around my body in Mexico when I speak to a young group of people in the area of Tulum, a place of ancient pyramids. Suddenly, using the divine mantras, light appears. We have many illustrations of this, but the bottom line here is when you begin to use the vibrations of the higher self or the overself, then you go through changes within yourself that allow you to put on this rainbow body. And that is why Overself Awakening shows 72 different chapters of how we go through color recognition, sound recognition, begin to see ourselves with all of the sacred centers of the body or the planetary chakras, and realize the oneness of how the ancients allowed sacred areas to be mapped with certain pyramidal geometries or circular geometries, the platonic solids, indicating that we are living in an orchestrated life, a vibration where we find we can do more. We connect with other creative people, but more importantly, we overcome the chasms of separation between the human nature and the divine nature. The divine nature I define as having a multidimensional capacity to work with intelligence throughout the universe. We are reaching that critical moment now. I realize that as a humanity, we're not alone. But what will be the language? What will be the post-contact experience? It will be the ability of what the indigenous called the rainbow body, or the ancient prophets, the coat of many colors given by Jacob to Joseph. That ability allowed Joseph in Egypt to save his brothers, who threw him into a pit, who divorced him because he represented the future that they could not recognize. In a like manner, we are to recognize, like Joseph, the coming of the cosmic Christ, the cosmic teachers from on high, the super angelics, the super arbiters, who bring us into a new relationship of realizing the next phase of life in the universe is that we will become the Adams and Eves, the new biologists and zoologists of new planets. But how can we do this? Simply getting into a spaceship, like Steven Spielberg may have shown us in that magnificent movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. No, we have to learn the vibrations that go with the other worlds. We have to learn the biology and zoology that go with the other life forms. We have to learn the patience and understanding of the sociologist who becomes the futurist, who realizes that all of the answers to life are not centered on one planet, one tradition, one linear process of knowledge. No, the mind has to open. The rainbow body, or the body of Joseph's coat of many colors, has to be put on. That is the mystery of the changing of the garments. We go from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. We realize the fullness of spirit, the Holy Spirit, what the ancients called in the biblical traditions the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit that vibrates and allows us to make change without fear.
But what I also think is very important to understand, that although we've gone to pyramids around the world and worked with certain actions of initiation, what's really important as well is our body in a lotus type of position is its own pyramid. So we can basically receive information here and now. I think that's so important because people say, well, I want to do the pilgrimage, I want to do this, or I have to wait till I get to the other side to understand. No, all of that is here and now. We can tune into the universal mind and we can connect with realms beyond this imagination. It's the higher realms. We can know things that have never been known. We don't have to read it out of a book, although books are exciting and we recommend books all the time. But ultimately, universal mind is present for all of us. If we need that information, if we want to transform ourselves, if we want to help others, that information is available instantaneously in our consciousness reality, because really consciousness is a field and we're the receivers and also senders into that field itself.
So this is why we're sitting here before this great mandala. To some, it's just a picture on the wall, but to others, it is a mirror that opens up the other areas of the perceptual apparatus. It vibrates, comes alive. In like measure, our books on sacred linguistics deal with the names of God, the many names of the cosmic Christ, the many names of the divine or Holy Spirit, that allows us to see that we must go beyond the fragmentary languages that have separated us to a higher vibration, what we call the universal tone that unites us. And this was what attracted Carlos Santana to the Keys of Enoch. In fact, his album called Supernature is based upon the Keys of Enoch. This type of musical language brought the famous composer, the famous singer, Alice Coltrane. We composed an album on the sacred language of ascension, never released, but will be in the future, dealing with the proper moment when we stand in awe before the cosmic others and realize, like the psalmist, King David has written, that we stand in the midst of the Elohim. Psalm 82. So we are, shall we say, in a unique position to understand the vastness of what we've overlooked by taking too much time into this black and white reality, this dualistic reality of separating one side of our brain from the other, one side of humanity from the other. We begin to see in the blessing given to Abraham, given to David, given to Jesus, a living cosmology of a scripture within a scripture, which is a musical vibrationary code of our DNA. We transform ourselves by realizing the true source is that of eternal light, eternal love, eternal purpose. And therefore we go beyond even structured knowledge into the experiential self. Without the experience of light and vibration, we're simply back to a word game. What I say in a joking way, my uncle prays better than yours in this place of worship. No, we all pray ultimately in a higher vibratory level of a global tone, a global song. And that is the sacred message that opens the seven seals to what John, the divine, writes when he hears the heavenly choir, the song structure of a universe singing, vibrating, co-creating, co-evolving. The spark in our eye is the spark of newness and purpose that we shall overcome because we know the eternal is here in the vibratory structure of our body, the singing DNA, the singing thought forms of our mind, the energy of now being the avant-garde moment of vibratory uncertainty is before us. Let us be good music engineers and singers.
Dr. Hurtak had a unique experience, and so the information he literally witnessed came from a different reality, but he was told that that information was to come to this planet. So in a certain sense, it's introducing that thought into the consciousness field that's here so that everyone in their own unique fields of study, whether it's astronomy or archaeology or even areas of future science, can receive that information and then put it into manifestation. You need to bring it sometimes to the local consciousness field. We all have abilities to go into the greatest, the highest fields of information when we ask for the divine to help us, to give us that information. But in many cases, we're just stuck in that local field. So coming into that local field of this massive amount of information really can bring a transformation. It's not that Dr. Hurtak did all the science or did all the archaeology, but he introduced the thought forms behind it. And so that makes the transformation. So what does that mean for us today and everybody today? I think this whole planet is evolving. There's angelic powers, we'll say Godhead powers, that want us to move off of this small little globe and sphere that we've been living on to understand that we're part of a greater cosmos. But we have to evolve. Can you imagine if we saw a UFO and we're still riding a horse without cars? I mean, there has to be this evolutionary stepping stone. And this is what we're in the midst of. And I think most people's mission in life now, if it's truly a sacred mission, can be, of course, to help others, if they're doctors, if they're nurses, all these different things. That's so important for the planet, as we see even more and more now with the changes coming and people having health effects. But in addition, otherwise, for education, for areas of even AI, with different realities, We need to be the way showers and the leaders. Our mission in all of these areas really should be to let's make the right step forward. Let's make the right understanding of what happens in my field. How can we better educate one another, our young children, but also ourselves? This is really the future mission, and each one of us has to play a role in it. But it doesn't come, again, from just the intellectual mind. It has to come from the higher understanding.
To say it on a little different perspective, we have to become the collective mind. Not just the spark, but we have to become the collection of sparks, all representing the different aspects of human creation. When I was allowed to see briefly into the future that there was a cosmic hierarchy, that we were one of many schoolhouses of planetary society, that this was an experimental planet, I was given the assignment of planting the seeds in different cultures. And this allowed me to work with indigenous elders from Brazil to Australia to Tibet, to the Zulus in South Africa, to the shamans in the Brazilian interior. But this allowed me to realize that the keys of Enoch were the keys of vibration, bringing together already the musical, metaphysical traditions that were there, but were not blossoming on the level of worldwide recognition. So this allowed us to open up the doors to think tanks, to major universities, but primarily to workers and singers, like our colleague Carlos Santana. So the question was not to sit in a room writing books, reaching maybe 1,000 intellectuals, but no, to reach a musician who could use the sacred names of God, the mantras, to reach 300 million people. Carlos was able to do that because he had gone through the drug culture. He had humility to recognize in the work of Metatron Enoch the higher sensitivity of the soul. And again, I use this as but one of many illustrations. We have worked with musicians in Japan, in Russia, in Germany, all over the world, because the world reflects our body with its acupuncture points. Simple, but very profound. We are a vibratory, musical creation, a temple of spirit, indeed the face of humanity, but a face that speaks wisdom when it finds the vibration that can support that wisdom. So you need to understand the whole concept of the divine spirit, not just a word, but an energy field of vibration. What I call it the field of what the ancient writers called the similitude, the field of energy support that goes with the image. It is the divine spark. Thus, our message to all of you is really to bring those sparks of vibration collectively together, because this is the time of critical mass. And we don't have to do this on a massive level of converting people to a new cosmology, as astronaut Mitchell recognized in what is called the overview effect when he was in outer space looking back on this blue-green planet. We just have to give people enough of a sparkle of joy, of feeling the divine pulse, so that even 1 or 2% can tip the psychic dimensions, enough that affects the planetary grid dimensions, enough that affects the biological ingredients of life, enough, and that is the synergy of playing the whole keyboard, the black and white notes together, the higher octaves that are not for the musical geniuses, but for the genius within each of us, to be the song celestial, to be the song of realization, of I am, my personality connected with the divine I am. I am that I am, musically, in color, and joy. That's the scenario I see for all of us.
Are you looking to begin your life of passion and purpose? We are waiting for you with our groups of 8 to 12. These loving teams are formed to look over our success data to find the fastest and funnest and most direct way for you to find your purpose and calling in life. To find out more, go to holomovement.net/purpose.